Hello, and welcome back to Unexplored Games. Today we're talking about Amoeba Wars, published by Avalon Hill in 1981. Amoeba Wars is described by Board Game Geek as a 4X game. The 4X's are explore, expand, exploit, and exterminate. Now, this game doesn't have much exploring. You don't uncover new things when you go to new places. And the exploiting doesn't really consist of more than owning certain hexes that have production points on them. So I personally don't view this as a 4X game, but rather a fairly quick, low rules overhead hex encounter war game that plays in like an hour to 2 hours. Something that you don't find that often, and something that I enjoy on those days where I want to play a game, but don't necessarily want to spend the time to set up a game like Eclipse or one of my other heavier games that I have. The objective of the game is to control SafeStore, the central system. Now, SafeStore, as you can see here, is surrounded by amoebas, and it contains a doomsday machine in the center, so it makes it a little more difficult. But as the game progresses, each player is going to move their faction closer and closer to the center. There's also an additional objective of eliminating all other players, but I don't think that's as fun as trying to get into the central system. Player elimination, it's controversial and it deserves to be. I've played it a little bit as a solo play, a 4-player solo play with player elimination. And one of the factions ended up just kind of sitting over there trying to produce over and over, not really taking good turns. Not really my idea of a good time. I prefer moving centrally towards SafeStore. That does create a lot of player interaction, and I'll talk about the map here in a minute. That does create a lot of player interaction. That's good for the game. At the beginning of the game, every player is given a number of power cards. The exact number is determined by the number of players in the game. These power cards have both numbers in the upper left-hand corner as well as powers that you take. The numbers determine the player order. The person with the highest number goes first, all the way down to the person who has the card plays the card with the lowest number. And the powers on them, unless they say must use, are optional. Every player takes a turn choosing one power card and playing it face up. Each player looks at their cards, looks at the card that is already played, and chooses which number and power they'd like to use. Once every player has chosen a card, and here I'm using a chip from each color to represent who chose what, then the person who chose the highest numbered card, in this example purple, gets to take the actions represented on each card, starting with the highest and having to go from the highest to the lowest. Amoeba attacks, a special ambush, etc. Once they've completed their entire card turn, that card goes away, and the next player takes these actions, every action lower than the card they chose, all the way until the final player just plays the action on their card. And the abilities on these cards range from the extremely aggressive laser attack to an amoeba attack that can attack any of the players on the board, or the doomsday machine activating, which goes into your system and attacks everything until either it controls the system or you lose, or something as innocuous as acquiring one dreadnought. Keep in mind that every card you play, unless you are the first player, everyone else around the table gets to use. Once you've played all your power cards, and maybe the doomsday machine gets closer to your enemy, or the amoeba expands ever closer to your home system, or maybe you get an extra few ships, then you produce and place spaceships, which is a pretty straightforward operation. Certain systems have numbers on them, and that is their production value. Every home system starts with a production value of 2, and as you get closer to SafeStore, these production values increase to 2, but are much closer. The prices on the ships are based on the numbers in the upper right-hand corner, ranging from a 1-point scout who doesn't have very much attack and defense, to your 5-point immovable monitor. When choosing where to place ships, you have to be sure that you are connected to your home system. So if I wanted to build a scout, I could put it here, 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 but I would not be able to put it over here because there's no connection back to my home system. Finally, once all your ships are produced and placed, you can move into the movement and attack phase, which is obviously the most exciting. There are 2 types of attacking. Attacking a system that has no ships or has an amoeba. And the second type of attacking is attacking a system that has ships or the doomsday machine. Both types of attacks resolve in pretty much the same way, with a couple differences. Let's start with attacking systems either with or without amoebas. First, you choose the number of ships you're attacking with. Let's say I'm attacking from this system to this system. You have a maximum 5 ships you can attack with, but you can choose 4, 3, 2, or 1. But I'm going to attack with 5 since I have it. I'm attacking from this system into here. I have my 5 ships. I'm going to add a die roll. This defending system, because it doesn't have any ships, is going to count the number of planets included. In this example, there's 5, and do a die roll. So, attacker die, 4 plus my 5. 4 plus my 5 is 9, and defender die is 5 plus 2, which is 7, and the attacker wins, moving into the system and controlling it. Now, if the die rolls were flipped, it may be a little bit different. The defender would lose. The number of ships the defender loses is determined by whether or not there's an amoeba. In cases of an amoeba, the defender loses 2 ships of their choosing, but if there's no amoeba, the defender just loses 1. Attacking systems with either enemy ships or the Doomsday Machine is a little bit different. When attacking from one system to another system with ships, you choose which ship to attack with. The attacker moves into the system, and the defender gets to choose which ship they will defend with. Same sort of thing, you roll a single die for each side, 4 for the attacker and 1 for the defender. But instead of adding planets and number of ships, you count the number of pips on each ship and add it to the total. So this is a 6 versus 5, and the attacker wins. The same thing goes for the Doomsday Machine. If the Doomsday Machine is either the attacker or the defender, you do the same thing, but but the pips on the Doomsday Machine are white instead of black. So in this example, if this is the attacker, 5, 6, 7 versus the defenders, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, meaning the attacker would lose. And that's the rules overview for Amoeba Wars. It's a fairly straightforward game, and you can see how it plays in a short amount of time. The rulebook is only 6 pages long, and the last 3 pages are reserved for special rules, examples, and an advertisement on the back. I really enjoyed this game. As you see, the closeness of all the hexes and starting sections on the map causes interaction near the center as everyone's trying to get to that central safe store system. I also really like this 1970s art, including that really cool amoeba in the upper left-hand corner of the map. The one thing that is a little irksome about the map is these colors. They help you determine how many planets are in a system, but as you can see, and actually the color on my camera is pretty good, there are 4 colors that are fairly similar, and when you start getting ships on top of them, it makes it kind of hard to tell the difference between this orange and this yellow here. Or are those the same? 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Look at that. Those are the same, but those are very different colors. Despite the color confusion that can happen, and the fact that maybe there's player elimination, I really like this game. I like how fast it plays, I like the low rules overhead, and I like that it is a hex and counter game you can teach to your friends who might not be into war games. The battles do have a little bit of a risk element where you're rolling some dice and maybe there's some randomness involved. But usually the armies that have, or armadas since they're ships, that have more ships are going to defeat the armadas that have fewer ships. The dice roll just adds a little bit of randomness, and if you don't want to deal with that randomness, you can always create bigger and bigger armadas before attacking. As an aside, although I do like the multicolored dice that come with the game, I haven't tested them, but I think they aren't exactly fair. I was noticing that one of the red or white, I forget which it is, rolls a little bit higher or lower than the other. So I just grabbed some dice I have laying around and added it to the game. One thing I didn't talk about is the power cards. It's not something that I play with because the powers themselves range from pretty decent, like amoebas only eat one of your ships in battle, or you may place reinforcements in any friendly solar system, to things like you have special monitors which can move and attack like other ships. If you don't recall, the monitors were the big guys who have more power than all other ships. Or send ships lost in battle against you or your opponent to the time warp, which is a special section of the map where they get locked until you retrieve them all. Now, while these do add a little bit of asymmetry, everyone gets a different power, I find that the asymmetry isn't that fun. Some people compare it to Cosmic Encounter, and I like Cosmic Encounter. I think it's a fun, silly game that you can play in 20 minutes and have a fun, silly time. But this feels a little, not more serious, but more serious for lack of a better word, and adding things where one person is way more powerful than the other just doesn't seem like a good time. But both because rules are there for you to play with, and because they're literally optional, I don't play with them. I don't like them, I don't play with them, and that's okay. It's still a fun game. It's fun at, I don't know, I like playing it 2-player. Solo, you can get a little bit confused with whose turn is what, because that changes every time. But generally, a ton of fun, very quick. But I found this site called Noble Knight Games, and they have out-of-print games, used games, old games, new games. In fact, they have at least 2 copies of this game, one for $14 and one for $17. I've gone ahead and added a link to the description below where you could, there's 2 links. There's one that's my affiliate link. I get like a 10% like of your purchase towards other games on their site. And then there's another link right below it that if you don't want to click the affiliate but still are interested in this game, go ahead and click that one. Regardless of whether you liked this game or not, I hope to see you in my next video, and thanks for watching.